A snowy day in Syria. Wait, what the crap? It's snowing in the desert? What the heck? Well, at least maybe the two opponents who are facing off in the snowy desert will make more sense than the snowy desert itself. So we got Prussia in Syria. Man, that doesn't make any more sense. And then the Cherokee nations. Are you kidding me? So we have the Cherokee nations versus Prussia in the snowy Syrian desert. Yeah, so I told you that this battle was going to be in a much weirder setting than that one that I just previously recorded. So why is it snowing in the desert, Air, you might ask? Well, it's because I had my settings on light snow in the last couple battles I played because I played on the Swedish forest map. And I forgot to take the settings off of snow, and I didn't realize that they would actually make it snow here in the desert. But you can see the snow like kind of goes back and forth from rain to snow, which maybe, I mean, there's some hills back here. Maybe we're at a high altitude or something, and of course it doesn't look like it. What with the palm trees and whatnot. So anyway, like you can see, I'm playing as the Cherokee Nations. This is the Syrian Ridge map. My opponent is playing as Prussia. He's brought a very low number, high quality army. I'll introduce it to all of you. He is making kind of a brash move here, though. My opponent made some very smart moves in this battle and some very questionable moves, and I'll point those out to you. This is one of those very questionable moves. He's got 2 units of Prussian Jaegers. That's his only skirmishing component, and he's moving them all the way up this hill all by themselves. Not real intelligent, because I'll just destroy them as they're very separated from their army and not units that are strong enough to stand on their own. And I'll introduce you to my army here in just a moment, but in order to counter these Prussian Jaegers, I've got some Muskogee tribesmen. These guys are bowmen, and what's cool is that the Muskogee Creeks are actually live in Oklahoma, close to where I grew up, so I kind of like using these guys because it rings close to home. So here's my Muskogee Creeks. Riding up here, they're gonna open fire, and I actually have some Creek horse riders as well, and they're gonna run into this forest and take care of business tomahawk style. So you Prussians should never have come to try and stop the invasion of the Cherokee in Syria. You should have just let the Cherokees have Syria. Oh my gosh, that's weird. In any case, here's the brutal fight going on in the forest. These Creek horse riders are actually quite tough. You shouldn't underestimate them. They have 9 morale and pretty high melee stats, and plus they're rifle armed as well. So this is kind of like having something not quite as heavily armored as a cuirassier, but similar morale, and they also have rifles. So, but of course in real life a lot of cuirassiers carry pistols and rifles as well. They just don't portray it on the game. So anyway, there's my horses retreating back to the safety of the hill. Let's take a look at my army real quick. I have 3 Muskogee tribesmen, and those are bowmen skirmishers. I have 4 units of these mostly naked musketmen, and no, that's not their official name on the game, of course. I have 5 units of the Creek horse riders. I have 5 units of these warriors, which are melee infantry. So there they are. And then I have 2 units of medicine men, and I'm not sure where the medicine men are right now. Here's some right here. And these are infantry that increase the morale of surrounding units, so you definitely want to bring medicine men when you're playing as the natives, or else your troops will... native troops are not resistant to morale shock, so like let's say they take a lancer charge or a cannonball hit, they'll start to waver, and they can't resist that morale shock, and if that happens, then you're likely to see a rout. Now, I'm going to cut off part of this battle, and it's because I'm using this hill for protection from my opponent's army. Let's show you his army real quick. He's got a unit of Uhlans here. He's got a Garde du Corps, and he has the same on the opposite flank. And he's got this unit of 24-pound foot artillery, and the same on the opposite flank. He has 2 units of lifeguards with 2 chevrons. These guys are like inhuman super soldiers compared to my Cherokee troops. Up his center, he's got 2 units of regular line infantry, and then he has 2 units of 2 chevron superior line infantry. So my opponent's troops are going to be very tough. Normally in a melee, those warriors that I bring to the battle can plow right through the European troops, but that will not be the case against these guys. Those guys are going to be tough. Anyway, there's his other artillery and his other cav. I'm going to cut off the recording and come back. My opponent shot into the hill for a long time. He's a nice guy. He and I were chatting back and forth. And anyway, he was firing at the hill for a long time, hoping he could find a way to cause damage to my troops. Of course, I have to use that hill for cover for the time being, or else his artillery will tear me to pieces. Alright, now when this battle started, I told you that I would show you some of the questionable moves and some of the good moves that my opponent made. And some of the questionable moves is where he's gotten both units of his Prussian Jaegers killed. There's the other one. But now, here, a pretty intelligent move he makes. He brings his Garde du Corps up here, which is a very tempting target indeed for my 5 units of Creek Horse Riders. So I move my Horse Riders out and start to get ready to attack his cavalry. And the way my opponent had been playing, I didn't really expect him to do this, but I was kind of leery about bringing my horse troops out because I didn't want him to fire his artillery at my cavalry and get a good hit and kill a whole bunch of my cavalry, because I really don't want to lose my cavalry. So I ran out quickly, and I was hoping to get some rifle shots off, but indeed he has just laid a trap for me. So there his cavalry's running off, and then check that out. His artillery shots just went barely wide over the top of my Creek Horse Riders, and nearly killed a bunch of them. So I got very lucky there. So that was one of the not questionable moves that my opponent made. Very, very nice trap that he laid. So I'm going to give him a congrats on that one. So he brought his cavalry out here to appear weak, and use it in an attempt to bait me out into the open and get me hit with his 24-pounders. And I was very lucky that my my cavalry wasn't hit, because generally artillery will hit your cavalry pretty easily. You can see that that's the effect that his artillery is having for the most part. He's mostly just shooting sand. And I'm using this berm, not because I'm necessarily real afraid to attack my opponent. I am a little afraid because of his artillery. And I'm very concerned that if I don't do something about his artillery, that if I walk out into the open, that he's going to be able to demoralize my men very quickly and just rush me with his line and finish me off. So I'm kind of formulating a plan here on what I want to do, and again I'm going to stop recording and come back after a little bit longer. Alright, so I have formulated my strategy, and what I'm going to do here is I forgot that my musket men and my Muskogee tribesmen can actually move while hidden. And so I start sneaking them forward. I don't know how you can walk across a sand dune unseen, but apparently these guys are talented. They possess powers from the spirit world or something that allows them to walk in clear sight yet go unseen. I wish that I knew how to recreate that in real life, because that'd be a pretty cool talent. Now, one thing to note, though, is I was watching my unit cards in order to keep an eye on whether or not my units became visible, and this unit of Muskogee tribesmen did become visible, and I think it's because his cavalry and his artillery and infantry is starting to become closer. So my opponent saw that, and he starts to move his cavalry in, because I think he's worried that I have a trap that's moving forward, and I do indeed have a trap moving forward. And seeing his cavalry take attention to my men, I start turning them in preparation to fire, and I start rushing my cavalry and melee troops over the hill. So he laid a trap for me earlier, and now I have laid a trap for him. I knew that his cavalry would want to make a run at me, and here they do. But my men are going to be able to stand their ground, and then check it out. Here comes my cavalry. They fire their volleys, and I'm going to meet him head-on in a cavalry charge. I'm glad to accept this cavalry fight. His Uhlans are already routing, and his Garde du Corps has already taken heavy losses. My cavalry is every bit a match for his own, because he brought the Uhlans. If it was 4 Garde du Corps, that would be a much tougher fight indeed. But because my men can fire off a volley of musket fire and then get into a melee fight, mine will definitely excel. But you can see that these Garde du Corps, those guys are no pushover. That's an armored cuirass that they're wearing, and they have the straight sabers. So these guys are tough in a melee fight. But they're demoralized by being so far from the army and being surrounded by my men that they're going to give way en route. And I was pouring in missile fire with my my bowmen and my muskets as well, which causes some friendly fire to myself, but it was worth it in order to get this Garde du Corps killed, because these guys can sit around in a grinding match for a long time. I think they have like 12 morale or something, and so I mean they have extremely good morale. So there we go. I have beaten his cavalry, and that has given me the edge I need to go ahead and assault. So my trap worked. My trap was to mark my hidden infantry forward and to draw movement from my opponent. and that worked perfectly, and that allowed me to use the mobility of my cavalry to gain the momentum in this battle. But again, the battle is far from over. My opponent has a whole lot of top quality infantry back here, and he also still has his artillery intact, but without his cavalry to protect his artillery, it's of course going to be extremely vulnerable. But he did make a smart move in positioning it near his infantry, but here I'm going to use the versatility of my rifle-armed cav. I can just wheel up and shoot them, and not come into contact with these lifeguard here. And now I'm just going to immediately run my men out, because he's forming into square, and unfortunately for him, the squares aren't nearly as effective in shooting at cavalry on this game as they are on Napoleon Total War. So he gets very little retribution. And now I have run my my musketmen forward. My musketmen outrange his infantry by 20 yards, so I'm able to open fire on his men. Now my musketmen are highly inaccurate. They are no good in a melee fight. They are only decent as skirmishers, and they will not do well in an extended fight against long rifles or line infantry. Now my opponent, I think, should have let these lifeguards sit back and do a little bit of shooting. But he's looking for a decisive engagement here, and he knows how good these guys are going to be in melee, so he's going to charge them forward. And I could have run my men away, but more or less I'm using these men as an expensive meat shield. You know me, it's Ayer's meat shield tactics, big surprise. But I mean, look at these guys. They have meat shield written all over them. My guys are like coming into battle with no good melee weapon, barely even clothed, and here they are getting owned by lifeguards. So this won't be much of a fight. Dude, that guy just got decked. That was awesome. Dude, he got decked too. Check this out. Oh man, that's awesome. My musketmen are getting wailed on. Anyway, now I have my warriors though that I ran around the flank, and my warriors mean business when it comes to a melee fight, and so these lifeguards have met their match. Now one-on-one, these lifeguards would do quite well versus these warriors. It'd still be a close fight, but I have like 5 units of warriors that I just charged into here, and so those lifeguards are surrounded. And though they're fighting bravely, much like the Spartans at Thermopylae, they're going to die, again, much like the Spartans at Thermopylae. Of course, these guys don't even have a bottleneck with which to defend themselves. So my opponent has gone into a full-out melee everywhere on the battlefield. Now my Muskogee tribesmen, I'm using them because they're archers and they have a little bit of an arc. I'm using them to arc arrows into the Prussian troops that are in the middle of a melee. And there goes some of my Muskogee, that's my musketmen. Yeah, my musketmen are routing, and I went ahead and ran away my my Muskogees. Anyway, I just killed the enemy general back there in the background with my cavalry. Sorry you missed that, but it really wasn't much to see. 5 units of my cavalry versus his general's bodyguard was not much of a fight. And check out this grinding match. We have a wall of muskets and bayonets running into a wall of tomahawks and war paint. And so what's funny about this setup, if you'll notice, is that his infantry is fixed against my infantry, and for purposes of historicity here and reenacting ancient battles, I am setting up a classic hammer and anvil strike. So you're going to see all the Prussian troops moving in and getting themselves fixed on my melee infantry. There they come. My opponent does a pretty good job of getting me outflanked here, and I think in a long-run fight he might have been able to pull that off. But I have the support, the morale-boosting support of my medicine men, who are right here. They're hurling tomahawks into the backs of the Prussians, and I have my archers firing into the backs of the Prussians. So there's all kinds of pokey and choppy death being thrown in there. And then check this out. Here comes my Creek horse riders. Who knew that my Creek horse riders had been trained in some of the same tactics as companion cavalry? I must have one sharp general. And speaking of a smart general, he's so smart that he decides that he's learned enough in this life and that it's time for him to go to the spirit world. So there he goes. My general has now gone too. But my Creek horse riders absolutely wiped out the Prussian resistance. You can see them all laying dead on the ground amidst the victorious war cries of my Cherokee men. So the brave Cherokee have gone to foreign lands, they have fought foreign armies, and they have won. So I hope you enjoyed that very strange battle. There's my opponent's name. And let's look at some of the unit statistics. None of my troops really got any huge amount of kills due to the fact that it was just a really big, messy fight and spread out. But I had so many more men than my opponent, they didn't really need to. You can see that I deployed 1,755 men as opposed to my opponent's 1,080. So good game to my opponent. Hope you enjoyed these Empire Total War matches, and the next set of videos coming out in a few days, we'll probably get back to Rome Total War.